Hello everyone. The world around us speaks a very large number of languages, and humans in society speak about 7,000 different languages, and this number is really frightening, and each of the 7,000 languages has more than one dialect and more than one way of pronunciation. But I wonder why there are different languages and dialects. Why don't we all agree on one language and speak it? So all people can understand each other. Welcome to the Weird Questions channel. And in this episode, we will answer the question, why does the whole world not speak one language? And before we start, if you are still new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you can get our videos first. One of the very famous stories among people is that humans in the past all spoke one language. But one day some people decided that they were building a very high tower reaching to the sky, and this tower was in the city of Babylon. After they finished building the tower and started climbing on it, anger descended on them from the sky, making them afraid and dispersing their tongues, and each group of them started speaking in a language incomprehensible to the other groups. Despite the spread of this story, there is no evidence of it, and it is referred to as a semi-myth. At the beginning, and before we start explaining, let us agree that any language that exists in the world at the present time didn't appear on its own, but it is derived from another language older than it. And even the ancient language that it is derived from it is also derived from an older language, and we will remain like this until we finally reach the mother language, which is the basis from which all the languages that emerged later are branched. It belongs to a specific family and is derived from it. We will find, for example, that the Arabic, Ethiopian, and Chadian languages all belong to one family, as well as English, French, Russian, and Indian. We will find that they also belong to another family. In the end, there was in the past one language that united all human beings. Other languages began to split from this language gradually, and entire families of dialects and languages. But the question still exists. If people in the past used to speak one language, what happened that made them speak different languages? Why don't they keep speaking their mother tongue, as long as it is widespread among them? The answer to this question is that they were really sticking to their mother tongue, but what happened is that people began to increase in numbers and began to spread and live in new places. A group of them migrated and settled in the countries of the Nile River, a second group migrated and resided in China, a third group migrated to Europe in the northern regions, and many other groups migrated to scattered places around the world. Although before they migrated and dispersed, they spoke the same language, something happened that nobody expected to happen and changed all the scales. Each group of people who dispersed discovered new things in the new environment in which they were living. They needed to create names for these things in order to know how to deal with them. These groups of people found on their journey many animals, plants, and new things. Unfortunately, each group of them called the things that they found completely different names than the name that the second group gave, and thus there were a huge number of different words between the languages of each group. This is exactly what happened. It is also the reason for the different languages. Societies and the peoples separated from each other and began to know new things in their daily lives. And this didn't apply only to nature, such as animals and plants, but also applied to tools and equipment that began to gradually appear in their lives, like the bed, the chair, the weapons, and the food basket. All these things had different names and titles. The ancient peoples were separated from each other and isolated for thousands of years. Imagine 1,000 years of new vocabulary and words. The mother tongue is almost erased, and a new language is created in its place. In fact, changing the vocabulary and words of the language is not the only reason for the difference in languages in the world. The way the language is pronounced and the way its vocabulary is used differs from one generation to another. Although the change will be relatively slow, it will be very effective. For example, the English language is constantly changing. If some of the Englishmen who are present in the current era try to read an old English text or document, they will find it very different from their current language. Also, they can think that the text is written in another language. This topic is not only in English. Arabs also don't know much of the vocabulary and terminology of the Arabic language because of the passage of time and because of the continuous development in the uses of the language. So in the end, the reason for the difference in languages between humans is due to their isolation in the past, and that each of them was creating and giving random names to any new thing they encountered in their daily life. And they began to change the shape of the language to suit their lives and culture, and this didn't occur on 1 or 2 days, but because of thousands of years. In addition to the difference in the use of language between the people of the language themselves from one generation to another. Because each generation uses the language in a different way in order to cope with the development that is happening in life around them. Some of you may wonder why we don't create a new and easy language that remains a global language. We agree as human beings that we use this language only, and we all learn it, and with the passage of years this language only remains and used by all people around the world, and it facilitates the cooperation and relations of countries with each other. A nice idea, but unfortunately, we as human beings have tried to implement this proposal more than 300 times so far. And all attempts have failed. Humans have tried more than 300 times to create one worldwide language, and the most famous of these languages is Esperanto, an international language invented by scientists in the last century as an attempt to generalize it to all people on the planet. It was an easy language, and indeed a large number of countries and international organizations supported them, and thousands of people learned it. It spread to Russia, Europe, North and South America, China, Japan, and some parts of the Arab world. But after many years, the Esperanto language began to weaken and fade, and the main reason for the failure of the idea of generalizing a fixed language to the whole world is that it is very difficult for people to give up their mother tongue, which represents their identity and history, because of a new language that doesn't have any cultural or historical heritage. The strange thing is that, if we assume that we succeeded in unifying the language and it remained in one language spoken by the whole world, you will be surprised that with the passage of years every group of people begins to change a little in this language and ends up branching out from this mother tongue an infinite number of languages, like our current situation. And a large number of thinkers see that despite the huge progress that humanity has achieved, the idea of unifying a language that is stable for all world is very difficult, and the dream of unifying the language is still an impossible thing for some and a suspended hope for others. This is the answer of the question of why not the whole world speaks one language, and is it really possible for that to happen in the future? Write to us your opinion in the comments below the video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the bell button to receive our videos first, and we will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.